Welcome to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. If you're listening on Spotify, you can support the podcast through listener support. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/Animal Stories for Kids. And now, it's time for our story. Once upon a time, there was an anglerfish named Splendora. Splendora the anglerfish lived in the deep, dark waters of the ocean, where it's so deep that the sunlight never shines. She looked different from the other creatures, with big, pointy teeth and a giant mouth that's ready to gobble up anything that gets close to her. Splendora was a very nice and fun anglerfish. The problem was, every fish that swam near her ended up as her dinner. Splendora had a special light that dangled right in front of her, called a bioluminescent lure. It glowed in the pitch-black waters like a tiny floating star. This light was very useful because, in the deep ocean, food was hard to come by, and Splendora used her light to attract any curious fish. They would see the glow, swim closer, and then chomp! Splendora couldn't help it. Her instincts took over, and before she knew it, she would eat the fish. This made Splendora sad, because she really didn't want to eat every fish she met. "I just want a friend," she would sigh. "But how can I make friends if I keep scaring them away? Or worse, eating them?" Splendora lived in a part of the ocean called the Midnight Zone, which is more than about 3,000 feet below the surface. It was always dark down there, so her glowing lure was one of the brightest things around. Other fish and creatures that lived in the deep were used to the darkness and didn't like being near something that glowed so brightly, except when they were tricked into thinking her lure was food. Splendora tried to be careful, but no matter how hard she tried to be gentle, any fish that got too close would end up in her mouth. "Oh, why do I have to be so scary?" she groaned one day, her big teeth gleaming as she spoke. "I'm not bad. I just look a little different, and I try not to eat fish. It just happens." Splendora wasn't mean at all. She was actually fun, loving, and joyous. She loved to swim in little loops and twist through the underwater currents. But no one wanted to join her because they were either too frightened of how she looked or too interested in her glowing light, until it was too late. One day, as Splendora was swimming through the dark waters, something unusual happened. She noticed a strong current beginning to swirl nearby. So she reached her bright lure as far as she could in front of her, and she saw some fish being pulled by the underwater current. The small fishes couldn't swim away from the current, and the current was much stronger than them. She swam ahead and saw that the underwater current was pulling all the fish toward a dangerous spot, right into a sharp coral reef. Those fish could get hurt if they hit it. The fish swam frantically, trying to escape, but the swirling underwater current was too strong. Splendora watched in horror as the current sucked them closer and closer to the sharp coral. "Oh no!" she gasped. "They're going to get hurt bad!" Suddenly, Splendora had an idea. "My light," she thought. "Maybe I can help guide them away." Splendora swam toward the swirling underwater current, careful not to scare the little fish too much with her big teeth. She lit up her lure as brightly as she could and began to dance through the water, creating patterns of light as she swirled around and made loops. The frightened fish who were heading toward the sharp coral saw her glowing light and, in their confusion, started to follow her instead of the dangerous current. At first, The fish were cautious, thinking it was another trap. But as Splendora swam in slow, careful circles, she gently led the fish away from the current and toward a safer area. The fish followed her light so they wouldn't be caught up by the underwater current. Splendora couldn't help but feel excited. For the first time, her light wasn't just helping her catch dinner. It was helping save lives. All the fish followed the light out of the underwater current, and they were safe. And after leading the fish to safety, Splendora floated happily in the water, watching them swim off into the darkness. And for once, she didn't feel lonely. She didn't feel scary. She felt useful and helpful even. The next day, something amazing happened. A few fish that had been saved by Splendora's glowing light swam up to her. Not too close, of course, but close enough to wave their fins in gratitude.
"Thank you, Splendora," one of them called out. "We were scared of your light at first, but you saved us from the sharp coral reef."
Another fish called out to her.
"You're not scary at all. Well, as long as we don't get too close and you don't eat us."
Splendora beamed with pride and happiness. Well, she glowed. Her heart felt full. "I'm so glad I could help," she said, careful to keep her mouth closed so her big teeth wouldn't frighten them. "I'm really not scary. I just look a little intimidating, and as long as you don't come up too close, I think I can get used to some of your company. So don't be strangers, and if you ever need my light for help, come over and ask me. From a distance, of course. Tee-hee-hee." From that day on, the fish in the deep ocean began to see Splendora in a new light. Literally. She wasn't just a fish with a glowing lure that ate the small fish anymore. She was their helper, their guide in the dark, and a friend they could count on when things got tricky. Splendora still lived in the dark, lonely waters of the Midnight Zone, and she still used her light to catch food when she needed to. But she didn't feel lonely anymore. Her glowing lure, the very thing that made it hard for her to make friends, had helped her become a fish the other fish could rely on. And while she still had her big teeth and her instinct to eat anything that swam too close, she learned that there were other ways her light could shine, even in the darkest parts of the ocean. Splendora found that kindness could make her light shine brighter. And the anglerfish lived happily ever after. The end. The anglerfish are teleost fish in the order of Lophiformes. Anglerfish have a round body with a big mouth full of sharp teeth. They have a special light on their head that looks like a tiny fishing rod with a glowing tip. The glowing light is called a bioluminescent lure. Most anglerfish are dark brown or gray, which helps them blend in with the deep, dark water. Female anglerfish are much bigger than males, sometimes 10 times bigger than males. Male anglerfish have large eyes and nostrils, and they spend their lives looking for mates. And in some anglerfish species, the male attaches to the female and combine their bodies with them in their tissues and actually lose their eyes and fins and their organs. Then they stay with the female for the rest of their lives. Anglerfish live deep down in the ocean where it's super dark and cold. This part of the ocean that they live in is called the Midnight Zone because no sunlight reaches that deep. The Midnight Zone can go as far as past 3,000 feet to 13,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. Anglerfish use their glowing light to trick other fish into coming closer. When the fish gets close, the anglerfish opens its mouth and eats it in one big gulp. Their mouths are so big, they can eat a fish almost as large as themselves. Anglerfish have sharp teeth that keep the food from getting away. Anglerfish can range from 1 to 7 inches long, with some getting as large as 39 inches long. Only female anglerfish have the glowing light on their heads. Males don't have one. Some anglerfish can stretch their stomachs to eat really big meals, so they don't have to eat again for a long time. Anglerfish don't swim fast. They just wait for food to come to them. The light on an anglerfish's head comes from tiny glowing bacteria. This glow helps them see in the dark and also brings other fish closer. The glow is called bioluminescence, which means creating light through living organisms. Anglerfish have tiny eyes, but they can still see in the deep, dark ocean. There are more than 200 different types of anglerfish in the world. Anglerfish got their name because they fish for food with their glowing lure, just like a fisherman uses bait. Anglerfish are carnivores. Some anglerfish are diurnal, while other anglerfish are nocturnal. Some anglerfish can be called sea devils, frogfish, handfish, sea toads, batfishes, and some can be called monkfish. And the term monkfish is sometimes used for angel sharks too. Have you seen a real-life anglerfish before? If you have, where did you see it? If you want to write to us, ask your parent to email us at animalstoriesforkids@gmail.com and tell us what you think of our stories. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. If you're listening on Spotify, you can support the podcast through listener support. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/animalstoriesforkids. Until next time, bye!